The PS4 Pro is the next step in the console's life cycle and the supposed importance of 4K. It gives you more power and control over the graphical fidelity of your games. Sounds awesome, right? But it's not as exciting as it sounds. Firstly, the console itself. It's bigger than a standard launch PS4, although not by much. Something that I'm a big fan of is that there's no more glossy, shiny surfaces, and now there's physical buttons for power and eject. They also added a USB 3.0 port on the back, something I'm really a big fan of. It does come with a 1TB hard drive, which I think is a huge plus right there. The power cable is also changed to a beefier PC-style cable, which I didn't expect. Also, it doesn't have a 4K Blu-ray drive. I know physical media is kind of dying, at least to some, but it still seems kind of like a glaring omission stacked up to the Xbox One S. It's really just the bulk design of the full console itself that is a little forgettable. It doesn't really look much different, but it does look for the better. But my favorite thing is the newer updated controller. It's not really that different, but what it does have is an added light bar in the front. It's not as bright and distracting as you might think it is. It's pretty low-key and I like it. Also, the finish of the controller of itself makes it feel a bit more premium. The controller itself is totally the same, but it just feels a bit more expensive, and I think it's because of that slight difference in finish, you know? PS4 Pro is a more powerful system than the standard PS4. I will spare you the tech specs, but it's sporting 2 times the graphical power and a little more RAM. As you probably know, it's been marketed around 4K HDR gaming and better visual quality. However, there are a lot of footnotes to this, and some of it is a little confusing. And ultimately, it could be this console's undoing. First things first, let me get this out of the way. It's really hard to show off the 4K difference. As of right now, we still only publish in 1080p, and YouTube's compression just really screws shit up regardless. But you do see a noticeable difference with PS4 Pro games on a 4K TV. The majority of them will not be native 4K. But thanks to some good scaling tech behind the scenes in the console, things still look impressive regardless. But knowing that most games aren't going to be true native 4K is going to bother you, especially if you're a PC elitist. It also feels a little bit misleading in the marketing. But 4K and upscaled 4K does look good. You'll especially notice a lot of edges and details in games look much smoother. It took me a little while to be convinced, but over time I really could notice a difference jumping back and forth. HDR to me personally is a more noticeable feature, but that tech feels like it still has a long way to go in terms of standardization, and on some TVs, between cables and settings on the console and in between the TV itself can really make setup a pain in the ass. But if you get it right and you can get it working on your 4K TV, the colors look awesome. I think you need to know all PS4 games work on the PS4 Pro. PS4 Pro has no exclusives. I'm saying that because there has been a lot of confusion with this. It's also important to note that unless the game is specifically patched to use Pro improvements, it will not magically load faster or have better frame rates. And that's really an unfortunate choice on Sony's part, but you need to know that PS4 Pro isn't going to be a catch-all for performance improvements with all of your games. The games are where the real magic happens, but that's really up to what the developer wants to do with the games. It's hard to tell which games are actually supported and what you're actually getting. This bothers me, I think, the most. However, one of the games that does it right is Rise of the Tomb Raider. It gives you the choice to instantly switch between 4K, better graphics on 1080p, or 60 frames per second in 1080p. Choice is nice, despite really complicating the simplistic nature of playing on consoles, which I'm not a big fan of, but the games, when supported, do look damn good on this console. Especially Rise of the Tomb Raider and a couple of other things, most notably Uncharted 4 with its HDR mode. Now, I have to acknowledge there has been some controversy of games actually performing worse by a few dropped frames on the standard 1080p's thanks to the way super sampling works. The console is still pushing things and upscaling them to 4K, but then downsampling them to give games still a noticeable improvement on your 1080p screen. So you are still getting improved visuals in 1080p, but that super sampling tech can hurt it a bit. At least that's what it seems with certain titles. Personally, I chalk it up to the developers for figuring the kinks out. This is early adopter problems. And while it is an issue because, you're paying for a quote-unquote better console, I don't see it being a long-term issue. The developers just need to figure out how to use this thing. At least I hope that's the case. Because if it's not, then I'm gonna have to come back and talk more smack on the PlayStation 4 Pro because it would be against what it was actually even advertised for. But overall, the PS4 Pro does have some nice improvements, but there's just so many caveats and explanations and options for each. It's all just a bit much and makes the package feel a little bit like an underwhelming half step at times. Don't get me wrong though, Sony fans, before you guys flip out in the comments, I think this is still the definitive PlayStation 4 to own right now. But I want this thing to scream, I just bought a new $400 PS4. And it just doesn't. Even with a slight boost of power, if you're an early adopter, you have a badass 4K TV, you have enough cash to buy this thing, no problem, it's still not really totally worth it. But if you're buying a PS4 for the first time, I would say yes, obviously go with this. This is the better version of the PS4. This is the PS4 you want. not. Not only do you get little adjustments in graphics that are a bit more future-proof for 4K TVs, but you also have 1 terabyte hard drive space now. So this is essentially the Pro version, how a MacBook to a MacBook Pro. But in conclusion, if you have a PS4 right now, you don't need to run out and buy this thing immediately. I do want to hear what you guys think of the PS4 Pro down in the comments below, though. I know some of you guys did pick it up, so I want to hear what you think. And also, if you don't have any PlayStation products, I'm curious to see what you think from the outside looking in. We can talk about anything PS4 Pro. I'll be down in the comments answering your questions. I'll also be able to answer more questions on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. And you guys know the deal. Clicking the like button helps us out a ton. Thank you so much for helping us and coming and watching all these before you buy videos. You know, if this is your first time here, subscribing is a good idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.